Welcome in to NFL Spotlight. We are live here. It is Tuesday, February 3. Come on in. Let everyone join here on the stream. It is officially Super Bowl week. Seattle Seahawks, New England Patriots. Who would have thought those two teams would be here when the NFL season started? But here we are. We will be talking about the game, the storylines, a bunch more here, of course. The week itself is just now getting underway. Everyone is flocking over to Santa Clara. Media week, media night was last night. Coaches, players, it's become a bit of a circus, but we'll talk about that here as well. Also, the NFL head coaching cycle is officially over. We have Arizona making a hire, Las Vegas expected to make a hire. We have a new GM opening with Minnesota. We'll talk about that also here later on the show. But let me bring in my good friend Ben Allen here as everyone piles in here on the stream. Ben, what's going on, my friend?
What's going on? Yeah, I appreciate that you say that the media night is kind of becoming a circus. I feel like it's been like a circus and all it's missing is a real tent for a while here now.
It kind of bothers me, Ben. You know, I've been to one. I went to the Rams Bengals one a few years ago, whenever that was, and I regretted being there. I hated it. Yeah. I hated it. So
that was before you and I knew each other. We could have been out there together that night.
Yeah, and it just wasn't fun, entertaining at all. I mean, I feel like the NFL could do better with it. I mean, the people who are there, the reporters who are asking questions who don't know much about football, I don't even know if they're actually reporters. It's just a circus. I think it could definitely be better. I think we could get better sound bites out of this thing. But I was watching the Sam Darnold one. I was watching the Drake May one. I was watching the Mike Vrabel one. Repeated questions, stupid questions. Just you could tell, and they have to go for an hour. I mean, right. And at some point, Mike Vrabel, I sent you the clip, Ben, was asked about if there was any NFL player or person who could be on the SI swimsuit cover from your team, who would it be? And this was like 54 minutes in. He was like John Stryker, who of course was previously on our NFL Spotlight, but everybody who was there listening in had no idea who John Stryker is, and it was like no reaction at all. So that's kind of the point.
Very funny.
It was great. I sent it to John. He found it great. So that's kind of where we are when it comes to media night. But here we are now on Tuesday. The game is obviously very, very close from here. Sunday coming up. So we're looking forward to that. So a lot to get to here on the show.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and get to some of the head coaching hires because we have officially now filled all of the head coaching jobs. Technically, one is still not technically done yet, which is where we're going to start here. The Raiders are expected to hire their next head coach, Clint Kubiak, the offensive coordinator of the Seattle Seahawks. Clearly a little bit busy this week. What do you make of this hire? How surprising was it? And just what are your overall takes on this move?
I wouldn't call it surprising. Clint Kubiak, it's all but confirmed. I mean, John Schneider was on NFL Network last night and said it himself. Said the quiet part out loud. Mike McDonald in his media night presser said it's bittersweet that this will most likely be his final game. So unless Clint Kubiak pulls off a Josh McDaniels, which was 9 years ago now when he accepted the Colts job, played in the Super Bowl, coached the Super Bowl, and then, of course, backed out. He's going to be the next Raiders head coach. This was a very, very lengthy process in Las Vegas. They went through a bunch of different candidates, old, young, offense, defense. I think as the process went on, they did identify at one point Jesse Minter as somebody they were very, very interested in. Eventually, Jesse Minter took the Baltimore Ravens job, and then they really locked in on Clint Kubiak. I know they definitely had interest in Davis Webb. I know Davis Webb withdrew his name from consideration. I also know the Raiders, from their vantage point, they loved Davis Webb. They do think he's a future NFL head coach, but they were a little bit concerned about the overall staff that he was going to be able to build. I think Davis, for his sake, is going to build his network over here over the next year because I do think he's going to become a head coach, but it might have been a year too early for that. Clint Kubiak is somebody who has been around the NFL for a very long time. He comes from a football family. His father obviously was Gary Kubiak, who won a Super Bowl 50, the last Super Bowl, which was in Santa Clara. That was Gary Kubiak winning it in Peyton Manning's final game. Fun fact about that game, John Spytek, the current Raiders GM, he was part of the Broncos front office for that game. So he does have a prior relationship with Clint's father. So you could do that. And of course, Tom Brady, who played a pretty big role in this entire search. The last couple of games that he has called over here for Fox were both Seattle Seahawks games, and of course, Sam Darnold and the offense in the 49ers game and in the Rams game and the NFC Championship game, they were hitting on all cylinders. So I don't really know if the Raiders were blown away by any of these candidates early on. I really think they had to go through the process and dive deep to really find the guy they were looking for. They wanted an offensive guy in the end. We know they're going to have Fernando Mendoza here with the #1 overall pick, most likely. We know Ashton Genty there. We know Brock Bowers is there. We'll see what the future of Max Crosby is. But this is the guy they identified at the very end. They were perfectly comfortable waiting until after February 8th, which is the Super Bowl, for him to come on. They were very ecstatic with the staff that Clint Kubiak is going to build. That was a very big part of this. And when we spoke about it a few weeks ago, the Raiders regime, ownership, GM, everybody involved, they were very disappointed with the way the coaching staff was built out last year with Pete Carroll, where they kind of had some arranged marriages with Chip Kelly and Patrick Graham and all these different philosophies. It was never going to work. This situation right now, Clint Kubiak, Clint is going to build his staff on his own. John is going to help if he needs help, but for the most part, Clint will be making all the final decisions. And I guess a bit of a fun fact here, the Raiders now have gone back-to-back hires, hiring a coach from Seattle. Of course, they hired Pete Carroll, who was with Seattle for a very long time, and now they hire Clint Kubiak, who after 1 year as offensive coordinator is going to become an NFL head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, and he will be joining a division with Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh and Andy Reid.
Wow. Now that hasn't happened in a while now. Unmuting myself. That's an issue. You know, you've got two mute buttons on these things. You've got the mute button on the computer and the one on the microphone. One on the microphone was saying I was live. So
yeah,
it's the one on the stream.
Happens to everybody.
Anyway, it was some really marvelous stuff you guys missed. But what I was actually going to say was Clint was, you know, a guy that I think a lot of teams looked at. And another one of those teams that did look at him, but ended up missing out was the Arizona Cardinals, who became the last team, quote unquote, to fill their spot. They're going to be going with another NFC West hire, this one, Mike LaFleur. What do you think of the Cardinals being the last team to fill their head coaching job and then Mike being their choice?
Mike LaFleur had his opening press conference here earlier today on Tuesday. I thought he did a really, really good job at it, first of all. Really came across as authentic, as a bit of some leadership qualities. Some people were concerned about Mike LaFleur over the last couple of years as if he's able to take on an entire room, at least from a press conference initially, did a great job. And really, he has been in coaching for a long time and has been around some brilliant minds from San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan, Los Angeles, of course, with Sean McVay. And of course, he had that stint with the Jets when he was the offensive coordinator there with Robert Saleh, which he mentioned in his opening press conference, how he learned a lot from that experience. So the Cardinals, similar to the Raiders, went through a very, very deep process. I would call their process more secretive than other teams. Their GM, Monty Ossenford, did say that they interviewed 14 different candidates, and I don't think all 14 were actually officially reported in the media. So some of them went under wraps, I would say, over here when it came to all of it. But they were looking for somebody in the end who is an offensive mind, which was, I think, a big part. Like they were looking at both sides of the ball, but ultimately it sounded like they wanted to sway over to the offensive side. And Mike LaFleur is somebody who had a previous relationship with the owner, Michael Bidwell. They've known each other for over a year. LaFleur mentioned it in his press conference here earlier today that he has gotten to know Michael Bidwell a little bit, so that probably helped out over here. But he mentioned a few things which were actually very interesting in how he's gotten to know the Cardinals organization as a whole over the last couple of years. Of course, last year, the Rams and the Wildfires, they had to play their playoff game in Arizona. So he got to be in that building for that playoff game. Prior to that, in the COVID year, the Santa Clara area could not have any games. And if you guys recall, the 49ers had to move the rest of their season, the final 6 games, to Arizona. So once again, he was in that area and he was around Michael Bidwell and the Cardinals organization. So he's had some of a familiarity with the people there, and clearly he hit his interview out of the park, and he's going to be working here with Monty Ossenfort. But there's a lot of question marks over here when it comes to this Cardinals team. First and foremost is going to be the quarterback in Kyler Murray. Mike LaFleur mentioned he has had a conversation with him, but again, the league-wide anticipation is that they're going to move on from Kyler Murray and eat that money. We'll see if a new head coach who has an offensive mind is going to be able to sway their decision, but that's going to be the first and foremost big decision here. But the Cardinals went through the entire process. I do think they had some other coaches throughout this process who they were intrigued by and maybe wanted to move on, but those coaches went on to other places and got jobs elsewhere, and that's how they ended up landing on Mike LaFleur. I think they would have liked to hire Clint Kubiak, who, of course, ended up picking the Raiders, but once that option was off the table, they got the deal done with Mike LaFleur.
There were certainly a lot of candidates that had interviews multiple places that, you and I had discussions we thought would probably be getting a head coaching hire this cycle. For instance, a guy like Brian Flores, who was connected with jobs like the Steelers. Ultimately, that went to Mike McCarthy. Who are some of the candidates that you're most surprised were not hired this cycle?
There's probably two or three, I would say. Chris Shula, the Rams defensive coordinator. I know it didn't, the final game of the year for them, NFC Championship game versus the Seahawks, was not great for the Rams defense. But dating back to week 14, 15, 16, that range, 13, like around there when this stuff really heats up, at least in my world, Chris Shula and Jesse Minter were the two defensive names, and Jeff Hafley probably also, that everybody kept on mentioning. So I was surprised he didn't get that many interviews in the first place. I think he did interview with 4 different teams. I think he was requested by 5 or 16, but didn't accept it with everybody. So I was surprised he did not get a job here in this cycle. We mentioned Brian Flores. His defense is obviously outstanding. The way he schemes is outstanding. The way the players all love him is amazing in Minnesota. But that big cloud of the lawsuit, I think, definitely hanged over him. And the Ravens and Steelers, who did not care about it, they gave a serious look at him. But ultimately, I feel like if that lawsuit wasn't there, more teams probably would have been interviewing him over here. And that's their prerogative, their decision. But I do think that is something that is holding him back from getting a head coaching job currently in the NFL. The Vikings, they value him. They gave him a new deal to stay there that is worth north of $6 million per year. That makes him the highest paid defensive coordinator in football. The offensive coordinator market right now is also spiking up like crazy, and it would not surprise me if one of those coordinators got actually more than $6 million per year. I'm sure we'll find out more about that over here in the coming weeks, but I was surprised about that. Probably the only other name over here that I was a little bit surprised that he did not get more buzz, and it's a defensive mind again, it's Vance Joseph in Denver. What they've done the last 2 years in Denver with that defense, and it's a few things with Vance. It's the fact that coaches, sometimes the way they think and the way they maybe hold grudges. Vance Joseph used to be the head coach of the Denver Broncos. He accepted to return to the Denver Broncos as a defensive coordinator with Sean Payton. That takes a lot to do in the first place when you're with that organization and they fired you after a couple of years. That part of it is first and foremost. I think a lot of people around the NFL respect that part of it. But besides for that, what they've done with that defense the last couple of years and how it's become one of the top defenses in the NFL, that goes all back to Vance Joseph. And I think he's grown as a play caller. I think he's grown as a leader. And we've had a few of his players here on NFL Spotlight, Nick Bonito, Zach Allen, who's been with him his entire career from Arizona to Denver. The way they talk about Vance Joseph and how important he's been to their career, I would think more teams would want that in their building. So I was surprised the interest was not that high for a guy like Vance Joseph. I get it, defensive side, but we saw a number of defensive-minded head coaches here getting hired in this cycle, including Jesse Minter and including Jeff Hafley. So I was surprised a little bit that he did not get more of a serious look here in this cycle.
What about everything? There's been a lot of conversations about the fact there were 10 head coaching jobs available, and there were no black head coaches hired. The Rooney Rule has obviously been instituted for a while. I know Mike McDaniel is multiracial, and then Robert Saleh is Mike McDaniel hired an offensive coordinator, but was getting a
Yeah.
lot of interviews as well. But then Robert Saleh being someone that is a minority. Do you think this was a question we're going to transition here as well into the Roger Goodell presser here in a moment, but that is something that was a conversation that was taking place. What do you think is kind of going to be, I don't want to use the word fallout because you can always have the argument you hired the head coach you wanted. It just happened to be this is what their race were. What do you think is going to be kind of some of the conversations that take place after this when you did have such a large amount of openings and then these were kind of like the results of the hirings?
The way around it. I mean, Roger Goodell was asked about it. I do think there's just the processes needs to be adjusted and fixed. And the NFL had the program accelerator program, which for whatever reason was canceled this past year. No one really knows why it was canceled / postponed. I mean, we've had a bunch of different guests here on the show. Ian Cunningham, who was just hired as the Falcon GM, spoke to us here on the show about just how awesome that program was to be in front of presidents and owners. Like, I don't know why that program was canceled, but these candidates that I'm talking about, the Vance Josephs and the Brian Floreses and some of these other guys, they would go to that. And this year it was not there. So their opportunity to be around those guys, that is obviously part of the issue here. I just think the entire Rooney Rule thing, I understand the entire idea of it is great. And there are teams who actually take it seriously and do the process the way it's supposed to be. No team better than, in my opinion, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, we saw how they hired Mike Tomlin back in 2007. Nobody thought about him as a potential head coach candidate, and they did the entire process and they landed on Mike Tomlin. My issue is a lot of these teams, they just do it to check off the box. And Roger Goodell, we'll talk about the press conference here in a second. He was asked about it and he disputed that narrative and he said it's not true. I would disagree. And I would just look at the Miami Dolphins process, for example. They had Kelvin Shepard come into their building on February. I think it was. I don't have the date in front of me. It was Kelvin Shepard came in first. They interviewed him in the building. Then Patrick Graham came in later in the day. They interviewed him. Then Jeff Hafley came in last that day, and they hired Jeff Hafley that day. The rule is you must bring in 2 minority candidates into your building to fulfill the Rooney Rule. It does not get more clearer than that. That's what they were doing here. Last year, the Patriots is another example. I mean, Mike Vrabel is obviously an outstanding hire for them, and he's been awesome, and here they are in the Super Bowl. But if you go back to their hiring process last year, it was Byron Leftwich and Pep Hamilton both interviewed on the same day, and the team announced it in the same graphic that they both interviewed, and then Mike Vrabel was hired the next day. I just think the process has to become a little bit more serious for this to become a possibility here where more of these candidates get jobs. So there's more work to do. There's no doubt about it. We'll see what the NFL actually does about it. I think the accelerator program should be back. I still don't have a good answer as to why it was canceled, why it was postponed. Roger Goodell was asked about it. Did not really give much of an answer. So they've been trying to do stuff, no doubt about it. And there was definitely an uptick a few years ago when it comes to those type of hires. But this year is obviously a very disappointing outcome for the NFL.
Let's go ahead and transition into that presser that Roger Goodell has, every week at the Super Bowl. He's got pressers throughout the year, but there's often a large amount of questions that have to do with international games. Some of them have to do with the 18th game. A lot of the same questions are recycled, it feels like, from, appearance to appearance. But what were some of the things that you took away from what we saw on Monday?
I've said this before. I'll say it again. Roger Goodell belongs in the Hall of Fame of saying a bunch of words while saying absolutely nothing. It's honestly an incredible talent how he's able to do it every single press conference. I mean, there were so many topics that could have came up over here in this press conference, and I was waiting for the good soundbite. I was waiting for the good headline, whether it is the officiating, whether it is the hiring process in the NFL, whether it is the Bill Belichick Hall of Fame stuff, whether it's the Steve Tisch, Jeffrey Epstein, like the amount of things that could have been brought up over here throughout this entire press conference and maybe get something good out of Roger. There really wasn't much. I mean, the biggest headline out of all this in my mind was the confirmation once again that the NFL is all in on going international. And Roger Goodell added that we're now going to be going to Paris, France, which the Saints are going to be one of those teams. They're also going back to Mexico City after missing that over here, I believe, the last couple of years. They are now scheduled to have 9 international games next year. That is an NFL record. for a season. Just to remind everyone what it is for next season, they're going to be going to Paris, France, Melbourne, Australia, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Munich, Germany, Madrid, Spain, and then 3 games in London. That equals 9 over here for the NFL. And Roger Goodell outright said it. The goal is to have 16 international games every single season. That means every single team, no matter what, is going to have an international game. I mean, the NFL feels like, and we've talked about this here before on the show, the NFL feels like they've essentially maxed out over here in the States. And now it's about expanding the game globally. We'll see what they're trying to do when it comes to the Olympics and flag football. That's a whole nother element about this as well. But trying to get the game abroad and trying to get all of that going on, that is something that has been a big emphasis. Peter O'Reilly is the guy's name. He is somebody who is very much the head of all of this, and they have been attacking all these markets. And that is the goal of the NFL right now. That's how they can continue to bring in even more revenue, bring in more money, and have the NFL grow around the world. So that was one big takeaway when it came to Roger Goodell's press conference, when it came to yesterday, the entire Hall of Fame thing, and that's coming up over here on Thursday. That was the one thing Roger Goodell got very defensive about, because he was asked about it twice, and both times he made it very clear. And in one of the questions, the reporter made it seem like the NFL has involvement with the Hall of Fame. Roger Goodell got very defensive and said, we have nothing to do with the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That is all media. That is all writers. Whatever ended up happening with Bill Belichick, with Robert Kraft, with the modern era finalist, all of that, nothing to do with us. And in perfect Roger Goodell fashion, he also said, I have no opinion on the Bill Belichick thing, because as of right now, that is a report that is unconfirmed to me. So well done there. That's good PR training there by the NFL when it comes to all that.
Incredible answer. It's an incredible answer.
It's good PR training. I was hoping for him to say, like, I can't believe that happened or whatever. It's like, listen, that's a report. I have no idea if it's true. So fabulous job there.
Regardless of what your opinions are on Roger Goodell, you can't deny that he's not an expert at this. Like you said, it is just a world-class ability to be able to deflect it. It's presidential in many ways,
Yeah.
Political at the very least.
It is amazing. And I always like, I kind of learn a lot whenever I watch Roger Goodell do a press conference. I mean, the way he's able to weave through an answer while saying, I don't know, 200 words, but saying absolutely nothing. It is a talent. The other thing we probably should mention here, Ben, is the officiating. He was asked about it. Like I expected him to. He did say that the officials are doing an amazing job, because he has to say that. And listen, I kind of agree with him on one part. The officials do have a very, very difficult job. And if you've ever been to an NFL sideline for an actual game, I mean, even just going to like Senior Bowl practices, I mean, and seeing that, like, it happens so fast, and being able to see all of it while we're in the comfort of our, sofas watching on our, amazing 60-inch screen TVs, it's much harder being on the field level. So I do agree with Roger on that. He did make it pretty clear that there are a few things that the competition committee is going to look at over here once we get to the NFL Combine and the owners' meetings here in March. I do think there's something over here that's going to happen when it comes to New York coming in and overruling a play if there's an obvious error made on the field. I think that is something that is going to be looked at over here this offseason, and the NFL is going to look to change over here when it comes to that process. Now, what is, obvious and what is defined as obvious, that's something they're going to have to figure out over here. But we've seen plenty of instances where, a situation where there should have been a face mask and there was no face mask, or there was a bad roughing the passer call, or there was a blatant missed pass. Like, some of those things over here are going to have to be brought up. And I think that is what Roger Goodell is talking about. So I do anticipate some changes coming to that. Roger did seem to be very happy with the new kickoff rule, with how there were over 74%, I believe, of returns here this year compared to around 35% the year before. He did say that could also result in some other minor changes when it comes to the kickoff, but it does sound like the dynamic kickoff rule is here to stay here for the future.
As it should. Yeah, I thought it was, sometimes we do get some interesting things out of this presser. It felt less like I didn't get much out of it. Like even just like going online, like Bad Bunny is what's coming up. It's not like there's like some other really big things that were really, groundbreaking from this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, right. The other thing, like, I mean, the whole Steve Tisch thing, which is a very, very disturbing situation. The NFL putting out a statement an hour before the press conference. I mean, that was again the NFL being great at PR.
Yeah.
And any question that he was going to be asked about it would have been like, hey, we'll point to that statement and move forward. So
Yeah.
there really wasn't much of substance for even like for me. I mean, I try to tweet out anything that's notable. I think I had like 3 total tweets from the
Okay.
whole hour. So
Right.
it was pretty boring.
Yeah. Something that's usually not boring, but probably about the same amount of substance. Super Bowl opening night. Yeah. I did appreciate you and our friend Janko going back and forth, claiming that I was the one who asked the Damashek question when Dave Damashek goes every year and asks, is the Super Bowl a must-win game, which is still hilarious, but I appreciate people thinking it was me and calling me an idiot on X. So thank you guys for that. Besides that question, what are some of the other things that you had as takeaways, notable things from, the event?
Yeah, I think there were a few things here that were interesting. Again, I have not even fully got into all of it, and I probably won't if I'm being honest when it comes to watching a full hour press conference of 25, 30 plus people is fairly impossible for one person here. But from the few sessions that I did watch over here, the Sam Darnold talking about Clint Kubiak, I thought was really good. If you're a Raider fan and hearing Sam talk about him and how important he's been to his career dating back to San Francisco. Again, that was the first time that Sam Darnold was at a Super Bowl. He made it that one year as a backup. Yeah, people forget about that. He was there with Clint Kubiak, and he played a big role in his career there and kind of getting him back in the right direction. And then talking about just how he gets to the facility at 4:30 in the morning. He's there before anybody is in there, and he's there later than anybody else. And this is somebody who is always grinding and is always forthcoming and always honest with his players. Like that is exactly what the Raiders kind of need right now. So hearing Sam Darnold talk about Clint Kubiak, I thought that was very, very interesting. Hearing Mike Vrabel talk a little bit about all the different players they have in their building and how they let everybody kind of speak their voice. And there's a bunch of different people in a locker room and how he's able to build a culture and have everyone together and just how a football locker room is the one place in the world where you have so many different philosophies and so many different beliefs and so many different faiths and so many different people coming from different places in the world and how he's able to build a culture. I have to find the exact timestamp of when he said that, but that was one of the more genuine answers he gave. And hearing him say that, knowing the culture he's been able to build in New England, I thought that was really great. I kind of felt bad for Mike McDonald, who was asked 4 different times about what he would do if it was at the 1 yard line and would you throw or give the ball to your running back. In the end, Mike McDonald was like, I'm sick and tired of getting asked this question. I mean, NFL on Fox, the Twitter account, put the video up of him getting asked 4 separate times about what he would do in that situation. I kind of felt bad for Mike, but this is what I mean about the entire event becoming a little bit of a circus. And that is an issue for me when it comes to all of that. But overall, it's just part of the media night that it is. All these coaches are there. All these players are there. They all answer whatever questions there is. And that's kind of some of what we were able to get here last night. Milton Williams talking about he would have never thought in the wildest dreams that he would have a chance to win back-to-back Super Bowls with 2 different teams. Here he is doing that. I think he also mentioned that for an instance, he thought he was going to be a Carolina Panther in the offseason, and then all of a sudden the Patriots came in with their final offer. Now, of course, here he is in the Super Bowl with them. So finding any of those stories and getting actual legitimate questions to these guys and getting real answers, that's kind of what I look forward to. From a full hour podium session, most of these guys get about 25 minutes of nonsense, I would say. And because there's so much nonsense, they give you a bunch of whatever answers on the serious questions. That's a little bit annoying about it, but overall, those are some of the things that definitely caught my attention from Monday night.
No, Guillermo bringing the ham up for ham for Sam.
The
To
only
be fair,
reason
those are the joke questions I like, are when
yeah,
Guillermo
Yeah.
from Jimmy Kimmel Live
Now,
is out
the
there.
only reason I even posted that was because that was the very first thing that happened with Sam
Yeah.
Darnold at his podium session. Like, if that was coming like 30 minutes in, I probably would have ignored it. But like the first thing that Sam had to do was put on this hat. So he played along, then of course got the entire crowd to cheer ham for Sam. But this is what I mean. Like, I enjoy it once they mash it all together and put it together on Jimmy Kimmel. That's fun. But like when you're watching it live, it's like this is so stupid.
It's something, which is
Yeah.
why we're gonna go ahead and quickly move off of this to the actual Super Bowl. The whole reason that everyone
Yeah.
is out there. Patriots, Seahawks. Seahawks right now, 4.5 point favorites. We'll make our pick here in a moment. But what are some of the biggest storylines that you are watching as we get closer and closer to Sunday?
Before I even get to the actual game, I think, we just finished this coaching carousel. It's probably worth noting, like a lot of these teams and fans are like, oh, we got to hire a coach fast. Oh, why are we taking so long? I think it's pretty cool that the two head coaches in this game, Mike Vrabel was the very first head coach hired last year. Mike McDonald was the very last head coach hired 2 years ago. So it doesn't really matter when you hire your head coach. It's all about getting the right head coach. And there's no better example of that than in this game. Some interesting, storylines and I guess facts, stats, whatever you want to call it. Mike McDonald, should the Seahawks win this game, would become the first ever defensive minded head coach who also calls the plays to win a Super Bowl. That has never happened before in NFL history. You look at that, that's very interesting. Mike Vrabel, should he win this Super Bowl, he would become the first ever person in NFL history to win a Super Bowl as a coach and as a player with the same organization. That has never, ever happened before in NFL history. Sam Darnold could become the fourth quarterback ever to win a Super Bowl with his first team in his first season. He would join Tom Brady with the Bucks. He would join Matthew Stafford with the Rams. He would join Trent Dilfer with the Baltimore Ravens. Drake May could become the youngest starting quarterback ever to win a Super Bowl. So there are a few things over here that are definitely milestones going into this game. In terms of just things to watch over here, Drake May was asked about it also at his podium session yesterday about his right shoulder, and was asked, hey, is this thing overblown? And he was like, yeah, I mean, it probably is, but at the same time, it is my throwing shoulder. So I do think that is one that is notable. He's obviously going to play, but when you think about a throwing shoulder for a quarterback, I do think that is one that is worth monitoring over here the rest of the week and to see how it all unfolds in this game. I mean, my mind just personally goes to Carson Wentz earlier this season, who battled through his shoulder injury with the Vikings, and then eventually 2-3 games later, his shoulder quite literally felt like it was about to fall off. So this is a situation where it's one game, but again, it's your throwing shoulder. So I'm curious to see how that all unfolds for Drake May. And as for Sam Darnold, I mean, he's had this oblique injury, which for any athlete, baseball, football, quarterback, whatever, like that is a pretty big deal. But he's gone through this injury now for 2 games and has looked the best he has all year long. So I'm not that worried with him. The other injury I'll mention here, Harold Landry, who I believe led the team in sacks this season, of course, followed Vrabel from Tennessee to New England. He did not play in the AFC Championship game. He is dealing with a knee injury. That's a pretty significant player over here. We'll see how his status is for this game. But overall, it does feel like the rest of the injury front for both of these teams, it is not anything crazy significant that should hold somebody out from this game.
What do you think about from a matchup perspective? You see here on the board that we've got up a lot of these things they kind of go with each other for the rush yards per game, the yards allowed. Like from an actual standpoint of what we should expect to take place during the game, where do you think a lot of that is going to ultimately be netting out to?
I mean, I think it's the two defenses here. I mean, we've seen the Seahawks defense and how unbelievable they've been this year, and how the Patriots defense has been so great as well. And I think both these quarterbacks, Drake May so far in this postseason has not exactly been regular season Drake May. And he's had to face some of the tougher defenses in football with the Chargers and the Texans and the Broncos. Well, the Seahawks are going to be just as difficult. And he's had some turnover issues here so far in this postseason. He's had some fumbling issues so far in this postseason. Mike McDonald is very, very well aware of that. I think for the Patriots' sake, Ben, what I'm going to be watching for is how they handle the situational football and how great they are. I think the way to win this game is going to be doing that. I mean, having those 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 play drives and controlling the clock. I mean, that is what Mike Vrabel and, of course, the aforementioned John Stryker do so well. I mean, that is how I think they're going to win this game. I mean, when you look at the talent discrepancy between these two teams, this is far and away the most talented team I think the Patriots are playing so far this year. I actually found this amazing. I saw the stat somebody posted. There were 10 head coach openings this year. All 10 of those teams faced the Patriots this year. It's kind of crazy. So this is far and away the best overall team, best overall roster, best overall coaching staff, I would say, the New England Patriots are playing here so far this year, and how they're able to attack that here in this game. I think it's for their sake, it's going to be a control the clock type of a thing over here and try to have it on their terms. So I'll be watching that. If this game is a who could score more, who could go head to head and a crazy shooting match, I give that advantage to the Seattle Seahawks. So I could see the pathway for the Patriots here, this game, being that 17-13 type of a game. That's the way I think they want this game to go.
Do you think that there is going to be, we're not going to get into the nitty gritty, but there's a clear leader for offensive player of the year. And, he's on the Seahawks. And then you look at the defense of the Patriots. You've got guys like Christian Gonzalez. You've got guys that really know what they're doing there on defense. That's why they feel comfortable, even in the snowy games. They felt comfortable being able to say, we're going to let the defense take place and we're going to let them do their thing. Do you think there is going to be a large focus on trying to stop JSN for the Patriots?
Obviously, there will be. I mean, that's
but completely taking him out of the game. Like, do you think that there's going to be such an overt action to try to take away one player?
I mean, I'm sure that's the Bill Belichick method, right? I mean, take away your best player and let everybody else beat us over here. So I do think that's going to be part of it over here. But aside from that, I'm looking for, every single Super Bowl, every single big game, there's always you're holding a player 2 or 3 all year long, and you're waiting for the right moment. And that's the thing over here that I'm kind of interested to see. What does Clint Kubiak have in his back pocket? What does Josh McDaniels have in his back pocket? I mean, Josh over the years has shown us a lot of different things with the, Julian Edelman throwing a pass to Danny Amendola. So one of those things are going to happen in this game. I mean, Rashid Shaheed is a player who Clint had in New Orleans and, of course, has had him for half this season in Seattle. We saw that big play in the NFC Championship game on the opening possession for 50-plus yards. That was great to see. I feel like there is something in this game, aside from the big-time players that we know about, aside from the JSNs and all that, there's going to be somebody else in this game over here that we're now ready for, that there is a specific play made for them, whether it is the Philly special type of a thing to Trey Burton. I mean, there was that Seahawks Patriots game, and the receiver's name is not coming to me, but there was a receiver who I honestly never heard of in that game who was going nuts for the Seahawks. I forgot what his name is. Do you remember who I'm talking about?
You're talking about earlier in the season?
No. In the Seahawks Patriots Super Bowl back in 2015, there was a receiver in that game. I think his name is Bennett. I think if I'm not mistaken. If you could please find the box score in that game. Jermaine Kearse made a big play in that game, but there was a different receiver. Find me the name, Ben, because it's slipping my mind. But there's going to be that type of a player in this game. Matthews, Chris Matthews. Is that his name?
Yes, he had 5 targets, 4 receptions, 109 yards, and a touchdown.
There we go. There's going to be somebody in this game who's going to be the Chris Matthews. That's kind of what I'm looking for in this game. So I don't know who it's going to be, but you're holding it all year long for the right moment. And who is that person going to be in this game? I don't know. Maybe it's Mac Hollins. Maybe it's Jake Bobo. I don't know. Somebody is going to come out in this game and have a big play that we're not ready for. The defense is not accounting for him. And then, boom, it's going to happen.
Chris Matthews, 36 years old, from Long Beach, California, where I reside. He played for the Seahawks there, the Ravens, then on to the Calgary Stampeders, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the Montreal Alouettes, and that was the end of 2019, and I am not 100% sure what he is up to now. He is cousins of Reggie White. If you just wanted another fun fact to be able to throw out of there, shout out Wikipedia.
This is the issue of losing the Super Bowl, because if the Seahawks would have won that Super Bowl, I would remember Chris Matthews, but because you lost the Super Bowl, no one remembers you. So there you go.
Yeah, I actually do remember him with the Ravens, but it was different times, obviously. All right, Ari, this is the moment everyone's been waiting for. You've been holding off and off and off and off. We're going to go ahead and let our friends at FanDuel get the little shout here, because you're about to make your pick here. And you guys can still go out there and make your picks for the Super Bowl. Head over to FanDuel.com. First $5 bet hits, you get $200 in bonus bets. Use it all across the app. Get your bet in before the Super Bowl. Get it with one of these other events, and then use those $200 in bonus bets to go crazy on the Super Bowl. Everyone wants to know, Ari, who are you picking in the Super Bowl to win?
Yeah. So this is our I think final FanDuel picks of the season for NFL Spotlight. The line is Seahawks -4.5. I have Seattle winning the game, but I have this game being a 3-point game. So the Patriots are going to cover. Patriots are going to cover this game, but I have Seattle winning the Super Bowl in a nail biter. That is my final pick. And I do believe kicking is going to come in big over here. I'm high on Jason Myers. Andy Baraglis is a rookie who has had some great moments. Week 1 was bad. The snow game was obviously a difficult one. I just think the moment is going to be big in this game, and I am going to go with the Seahawks winning, but the Patriots covering.
So 3 points. Do you have a score? Is it high scoring, low scoring?
Low scoring. We're going to go 20-17 is your final score in this game.
Dang. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I always like the fireworks. I like the big scores, but I think that you're right. It's probably going to be around that. I also think the Seahawks are going to win, which means it's a lock for the Patriots to go out there and win another Super Bowl and create another dynasty that's going to destroy fans' hearts in the AFC for years to come, a la Ravens fans like myself. I'm really excited for this one. I think that the coaching matchup's really cool. I'm obviously a huge Mike Vrabel fan. I think a lot of people do recognize the greatness in which he has played an impact on so many players. And I think just the way that he relates to his players makes him a very easy guy to root for, while the team is the opposite of a very easy team to hate if you aren't out of the New England area. I'm really excited for it. Any other predictions that you think is going to take place? Any wild bets? What's going to be heads or tails?
It's honestly amazing.
Tails never fails.
Tails never fails. I mean, I have so many people in my life who obviously I'm around them, and they just tell me all these crazy bets and parlays and wild things that they're putting together. And I'm like, guys, great, enjoy it. Yeah, like whatever. They'll put Milton Williams with 3.5 sacks or something. Like I'm like, yeah, sure.
Which song Bad Bunny is going to perform first? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, all the crazy things you could think of. So it's going to be a great game. It's going to be a great Super Bowl. All we ask for is a competitive game for 4 full quarters, unlike last year. That's all we want to be here as fans, and hopefully it's just as good as the last Seahawks and Patriots Super Bowl, which I believe the only person left from that game is Josh McDaniels, who is going to his 10th Super Bowl. So congratulations, Josh. So that is what we are all hoping for, and it should be great. I'm not sure. Are we going live one more time here this week, Ben? Yes or no? What do you think?
I think we'll probably do it one more time, but we got a couple more things we got to get to still today before we're going to talk. We might talk Super Bowl a little bit more, but we'll see. I think probably where a lot of the coaching stuff lands out, which is what I wanted to ask you about real quick. Is everything that's going on with these offensive coordinators. For those of you who are keeping track at home, 21 teams expected to have new offensive coordinators this upcoming season, some of which, like Declan Doyle, for instance, are going from one head coach or one offensive coordinator opportunity to another so they can have a larger role in running the offense, calling plays, this kind of stuff. There are guys that are just strictly going from one team to another. You have guys like Todd Monken who are going from offensive coordinator to fired because of Harbaugh to then now being a head coach. Just a lot of jumbled mess. I mean, I've been cracking up. I love looking at your graphic that you have regarding it. I'm just going to crudely slap it up there in the middle of us there.
Oh, it's not updated.
I was going to say, I was like, I don't even think it's fully updated at this point, but just giving you a wild look at how many things have changed. How shocked are you that we're seeing so many new offensive coordinators play calls that are going to impact the way that we see offenses next year? It's not just a small thing of oh, things are changing. This is going to be the way that we see offenses run.
I mean, once you have 10 teams changing head coaches, you expect there to be 10 new offensive coordinators, but we have double that up to 21 now. So even more than doubled with the amount of teams who are looking for new offensive coordinators. And most of these names, the crazy part is most of these names were not offensive coordinators last year. I mean, that's the crazy part when it comes to all of this. When you look at the overall landscape right now, from the guys who were hired Matt Nagy, Declan Doyle, Zach Robinson, Tommy Reese, and Drew Petzing were the only ones who actually were OCs last year. The rest of these guys were either head coaches like a Brian Daboll or a Mike McDaniel, like those guys. And everybody else is in this role either for the first time or back in this role again after being in it previously, like an Eric Bieniemy. So it's very interesting to see how this all is changing around the NFL. And I think for the most part, a big part of it is a lot of these teams are seeing just how offensive centric the NFL obviously has become. And how do we evolve? How do we change? How do we get better? How do we do better with our current personnel? Who is the right person for that? And that is kind of how we ended up in all of this. I mean, for example, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they moved on from Josh Grizzard, who was their pass game coordinator in 2024 when they were pass heavy and going nuts and so amazing. They elevate him to offensive coordinator. The offense takes a bit of a step back. Their new offensive coordinator, the way they looked out over here was, who could we find over here who we believe is going to mesh well with our quarterback, Baker Mayfield, and all the players that we have around here? The ultimate answer was Zach Robinson, who during the Baker Mayfield resurgence in LA, he crossed paths with Baker Mayfield. That's how they ended up landing on him. That's how they landed on Liam Cohn a few years before that as well. They were together in LA. So the way all these hires are coming along, it's very interesting, but we still have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more teams who are going to have to hire new offensive coordinators. Some of these teams are actually for a primary offensive play caller. Some of them are just to have the title of offensive coordinator. The Jets, for example, who are appear to be down to Frank Reich, Darrell Bevell, and Greg Roman. Whoever they hire for that role is going to be calling the offense, and Aaron Glenn is giving him full autonomy of the offense. Like, you do it your way. You're a veteran coach. You've been here, done that. I mean, Roman and Bevel have been offensive coordinator 4 different times around the NFL. Frank Reich has been a head coach twice in the NFL. Aaron Glenn going into this year, his plan is to be solely he'll be the defensive play caller, and he's going to be heavily involved in the defense, and he wants to hire an offensive CEO to take care of the rest of it. That's why he's looking at these 3 veteran minds. But the rest of these teams, when you look at the openings around the NFL, most of them are going to have head coaches who are calling the plays already. The Rams have Sean McVay. The Bears have Ben Johnson. The Steelers have Mike McCarthy. The Raiders are going to have Clint Kubiak. The Cardinals are going to have Mike LaFleur. So for the most part, the guy they hire at OC, he is not going to be calling the plays, but he's going to be heavily involved throughout the course of the week when it comes to game planning and installs and all of that, while the head coach is obviously involved in other aspects of the operation. So it is crazy to see that many movements around the NFL. I am happy for some of these guys, especially the guys who are previous guests here on the show. Declan Doyle going from 1 year as the Bears OC to now becoming the Ravens OC and calling plays and working with Lamar Jackson. Pretty cool story. Would not surprise me.
As his quarterback.
Same age as his quarterback. So pretty cool story for him. Would not surprise me if he's a head coach candidate up here in the next couple of years. So each situation is different. Every reason around the NFL is different for these hires, but it's quite crazy to see that number, 21 different new offensive coordinators next year. And Ben, by the way, the defensive side is not as large, but it's pretty large as well. I have a tracker over here of that, which I have not tweeted, but the defensive coordinators right now is up to 14, and it might become 15 if the Browns do not retain Jim Schwartz, who clearly does not want to be there. So it's a pretty big number here on both sides of the ball.
Is there any team that won't hire one where like the head coach will just do that and they'll just kind of keep it? Because was it the Rams who didn't have an OC for a while? They just never even listed one. It was just like, we have like a pass game coordinator, we have these other things, but Sean just does Sean things.
Yeah. The Rams, so I tweeted this when Mike LaFleur got the job. The Rams have had 4 offensive coordinators under Sean McVay. It's been Matt LaFleur, it's been Kevin O'Connell, it's been Liam Cohn, and it's been Mike LaFleur. All 4 have gone on to become head coaches here in the NFL. There was a gap after Matt LaFleur left early in his tenure where Sean was like, I'm calling the plays anyway. There's no reason to hire an offensive coordinator. We'll have a bunch of other titles. That changed eventually. Kevin O'Connell got it later on after a couple of years. But yeah, that was a team that did not have one. I believe the 49ers also did it with Kyle Shanahan. So each team is different. I think it just looks better. You know, your staff member, whoever it is, feels better about himself. It's it's an easier pathway to becoming a head coach, because if you're an owner or a president, you want to hire the coordinator, not some quarterbacks coach to become your guy. So that is the whole reasoning behind title. But yeah, we'll see if the Rams actually hire somebody. I think there's an easy promotion there with Nate Shieldhouse. I think that would make sense. So it would make sense to hire somebody there. But yeah, there are some of these teams who might just say, you know what, screw it. I'm anyways calling the plays. Why have an official offensive coordinator?
Yeah, I was happy to see that Davis Webb did get that promotion,
Yes.
for instance, in Denver, and some of those guys that,
Yeah.
certainly, were getting some of the head coach buzz, but we haven't necessarily had the opportunity to see them call plays or something like that. Same thing with Declan. Like,
Yeah.
Declan obviously had a big impact with the way that the Bears were able to perform on offense this year, but he wasn't one calling the plays. So now him being able to step into a position where he can do that, I think will be pretty significant. I do want to tell you guys about our friends over at Root Insurance. They help you get rewarded for good driving. They have a very easy to use app. They do a lot of things that really help you test your way with their app to be able to drive, be able to get feedback so you have an actual idea as to how much you're going to be paying for your insurance. It's all super easy. File a claim in just a few minutes. It's really fantastic stuff. Go over to root.com, learn how you can get rewarded for safe driving. I want to know from you, Ari, of like all these offensive coordinators, these defensive coordinators, all of these candidates that we've discussed for these potential job openings, which would you say is actually the safest bet to be an NFL head coach? Not this season, but the year after.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this big list again, 21 teams are going to have a new offensive coordinator. So far, 14 of those jobs are filled. I'll give you one that I feel pretty good about. I'll give you the dark horse as well. The one that I feel pretty good about, I do think Brian Daboll will get a second chance in the NFL, and I think what he's going to do in Tennessee is going to be pretty fun. I mean, similar to what I said about Aaron Glenn, Robert Saleh is giving Brian Daboll full autonomy of the offense, the coaching staff on that side of the ball. Do what you got to do, Brian. Take Cam Ward to the next level. And I feel like Cam and Brian, like, people know this. Brian sometimes gets a little bit too fiery, too angry. Cam is someone who could accept that. So I think that part of it is why I think it's going to work really well in Tennessee. So I think Brian Daboll, I mean, he'll be an offensive coordinator at least for 1 year. Tennessee went crazy to try to get him. I like that one as one. And I think if he does success with Cam Ward, a different team of a young quarterback will try to bring him in. And then the dark horse, I mentioned it before. We had him on the show. I think Declan Doyle is going to be a future head coach in the NFL. I don't know when. It might be 2 years from now. I mean, but the things you hear about this guy from Sean Payton and people, and of course now hearing Ben Johnson, and now Jesse Minter is hiring him. Like, these are a bunch of different trees here in the NFL. We're talking about the Sean Payton tree and the Ben Johnson, whatever tree you want to call that from, and then Jesse Minter, who's coming from the Harbaugh tree. So it's interesting how all these different philosophies here are buying into this guy, and just hearing everything about him and what he did in Chicago throughout the course of the week to help prepare Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson for all the magic they had this year. He's a bit of a quieter guy. He's a bit of a serious guy, but I
He's
think
a
that
football fanatic. Talk about somebody that
yeah,
lives, eats, sleeps football.
all of it, all of it. So I think he's probably a year or two away from being in the head coach seat, but he's on a rocket ship. He's on a rocket ship right now, and I love the fit in Baltimore. I think it's a perfect fit for him. It's a perfect fit for Jesse Minter. I love the staff that they're building right now. You and me, both of us, have been really high on this guy ever since we had him on the show, and he's somebody who I think is definitely a future guy here in the NFL.
I love it. Yeah, head over to root.com, learn how you guys get rewarded for good driving, get yourself a good rate. That's what Root Insurance is there for. A couple other things before we get out of here. Ari, I want to talk about some of the other like GM related stuff that's happened. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah gone after 4 seasons as the general manager with the Vikings. I know this is something you and I have talked about for a while now, where it's like it felt like there was always like this hot water situation with him, but then it never really happened. And then suddenly it happens at kind of like a weird time. Like he was just at the Senior Bowl, and now it's sayonara. We're going to go with, interim stuff through the draft and everything. What do you make of the timing, I guess I should say first, when it comes to the firing of Kwesi?
Yeah, timing is weird. No doubt about it. When a GM is fired, it's either in season, it's immediately after the season, or it's after the draft. Because once the draft ends, that's when the new process for the next draft officially starts. You want a new GM in there. To do it 4 weeks after your season ended and 6 or 7 weeks after you were officially eliminated from playoff contention is just weird. It's odd. It doesn't make sense. I was not surprised by the firing. Like you said, Ben, me and you both have spoken a lot about this offline. A lot of people in the media who do the same job as me when it comes to covering the NFL, some of them tweeted it outright, like, we're not surprised by this. A lot of fans' reaction was like, if you're not surprised by it, why did nobody report it? When you're in our shoes, when you hear a lot of this stuff, and most of it was coming third hand, I'll be honest, like the stuff that the way it buzzes around the NFL sometimes, like it goes really quick. Throughout the course of a year, you hear crazy things. Like we've heard about this stuff for over a year now, 2 years. And I'll take you back to some of it, but like when the Vikings season ended last year, Kevin O'Connell got an extension immediately after the season was over. Kwesi did not get an extension till like May or June. Like it was way after. And that's when like you knew, like, if you're extending your head coach that fast, but you're not extending your GM for 3, 4, 5 months later, what's going on over there? The whole stuff over here out there about, taking leave after his child was born, like that thing was out there in the NFL for a while. Nobody talked about it. And it's, again, I know it was a very big debate online, but within NFL circles, who are people I talk to, people did think it was insane that that is something that a GM could do. And again, that is just not normal GMing. But again, you have to remember where Kwesi came from. He came from a completely different background than all these other GMs. He's not the scouting background. He's not the cap background. This is a guy who used to be on Wall Street, and he used to be, that's the background that he had. And he's a big analytics guy. Like that's where he kind of came from. But you see the draft that they've had, and really maybe 3 players that you would consider to be hits. I mean, Jordan Addison, probably Jalen Redmond, the defensive tackle, is a pretty good player. Will Reichert, the kicker, is one of the better kickers in football. But aside from that, a lot of questionable decisions when it comes to the draft. And I don't think that's all Kwesi. I think that was also their assistant GM, Ryan Grigson, who's a big part of it. But it just felt like the idea of thinking outside the box with the GM hire after Rick Spielman was let go, it was a big swing, which looked like it was, possibly could work. And they definitely won a bunch of games. But when you put it all together, it just felt like a lot of people in the building were like, yeah, this guy is not exactly what a GM is supposed to be in the NFL. I do think Kwesi's a brilliant mind. I do think he'll get another high level position somewhere else with a team. It just felt like the idea of him being a GM around all the other people did not exactly mesh. I will say one thing. The quarterback stuff, which I've seen people report as if that was a Kwesi problem, I'll report this myself. I'll say it myself. That was not Kwesi. That is Kevin O'Connell. All the quarterback decisions. That is, letting Kirk Cousins go, which ended up being right. Bringing Sam Darnold in, which was right. Letting Sam Darnold go, which obviously is not good. Drafting JJ McCarthy. That's all Kevin O'Connell. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. I mean, if you really think Kwesi was pressing all the buttons over here on who should be the quarterback for Kevin O'Connell, who is one of the better quarterback coaches in the NFL, you're crazy. So I'll just say that when it comes to all of this, that was all. It was, whether it's collaborative or Kevin had the bigger voice. I mean, I think we got to make that a little bit clear here, because when a person gets fired, Ben, there's always anonymous sources here trying to angle stuff over here and how it's supposed to look. Sure. The quarterback stuff is all Kevin O'Connell. I really don't know how else to say that. That's just the simple reality. And we'll see what ends up happening here with JJ McCarthy in his future. We know about Sam Darnold playing in the Super Bowl. We know about they're going to add a veteran quarterback, whether it's Kyler Murray, Geno Smith, Tua, I don't know who it is. Someone's going to be joining this room over here. But the idea that Kwesi was this mad scientist just, pressing buttons on the quarterback stuff, that is far from the truth, just far from the truth. And I just want to correct that.
Gotcha. That's good context. Let's flip it over to the other side. While Kwesi is on his way out, looks like we're going to be getting Sean McVay and Les Snead for a little bit longer. Obviously, Sean's somebody that it seemed like for a while could be walking away at any point to go get a $20 million deal with Amazon or whomever it might be to take away a little bit of the stress of being a head coach and maybe have just some time to be with the family and talk about football in a different way. Multi-year contracts for both these guys. I don't know if we necessarily have the details exactly, but I imagine these two are probably going to be getting length obviously added on, but probably some good pay increase as well for another successful season.
Yeah, I mean, I would be very surprised if Sean McVay's contract is not north of $20 million per year to make him among the highest paid coaches in the NFL and NFL history. Again, a lot of the coaching contracts is a secret thing around the NFL, which not many people are supposed to know about. But it's safe to say Sean McVay is going to be on the upper echelon when it comes to all of that. These two have been together the entire time. Of course, Les was there before with Jeff Fisher and all that. But ever since they made that very bold hire of hiring a 30-year-old Sean McVay, this team has gone to lengths and places that I don't know if they ever thought a 30-year-old Sean McVay would be able to do. But he has been outstanding for them. Obviously, they were one game away from making the Super Bowl this year. They fall short in that. Big offseason ahead. We'll see what ends up happening with Matthew Stafford. They do have 2 first-round picks. A lot going on over there, but none of this should come as a surprise as those two are now locked in for the future, and they're going to move forward. So that does not come as a surprise. And I think the bigger story here, Ben, is the fact that Sean is extending and the fact that he is officially, like we knew already, but there was 2-3 years there we were like, Sean will just let this all go and become a TV guy, make money there. He has his first child on the way. Now he has 2 kids. Like he's clearly all in on coaching and staying in that path, which I would say 3-4 years ago, that was not exactly a guarantee.
I didn't blame him either. I think he's a genius, and obviously you see now this tree that he is building even at such a young age. I think football's better when Sean McVay is around, so I'm very happy to see that being the case. Anything else we got to do before we get out of here, Ari?
I will say now there is it's minor news, but we always talk about up and coming coaches around the NFL. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to hire this guy named Chandler Whitmer to become their quarterbacks coach. Chandler Whitmer was the co-offensive coordinator at Indiana this past year with Fernando Mendoza. He has been on my up and coming coaches list since he was a quality control coach with the Los Angeles Chargers 3-4 years ago. Yes, yeah. Yeah, so very happy for Chandler, and it would not surprise me if he is somebody who will be a future NFL Spotlight guest. Would not surprise me he's a future offensive coordinator in the league, and now he's back in the NFL. Just took the quarterbacks coach job with the Buccaneers. I thought he would end up with the Raiders because Mendoza, right? I do think they had interest, but he ends up taking this job over here on Zach Robinson's staff. So we're going to say that over here on February 3rd, 2025. I think it's the first time I've mentioned this.
2025. Oh,
2026. Sorry, 2026. I'm still in 20. It's crazy. But we're saying his name here for the first time on the show. He's been in my articles for 3-4 years. He's on a rocket ship. He's going to be a future guy in the NFL, and we'll just say it here to wrap up today's show.
Quickly, I'm going to give some free pub to something that's not 33rd team related. If you have not gone and watched Fernando Mendoza's interview on Sunday Conversations with Caleb Presley, it is one of the most enjoyable 6 minutes that you can find with just a happy-go-lucky kid talking about how much he loves football and just handling ridiculous questions. One of the most fun things I have watched in a long time. I don't know if you've seen it yet, Ari. Absolutely fantastic. Asking him if he's going to be able to handle the distractions of Las Vegas with it being the business conference capital of the world was just way too good.
Yeah, I'm excited. Listen, we're going to be taking in a lot of Fernando Mendoza, content over here in the next few months. I have not seen it yet. I've seen a couple of clips go through my timeline, but I have not played it. But I will get to it for sure. But I am a little bit surprised that Chandler is not going with him to Las Vegas, but that is a name to watch over here in the future. And I think that is the right way to wrap up over here this edition of NFL Spotlight, Tuesday, February 3, 2026, over here on the show. Like we said earlier here at the halfway point, we will be going live likely one more time over here this week before the big game on Sunday. More football talk, more football conversation, more reaction to everything going on down there in Santa Clara, and we will see you then.